The light switch made the exact same soft click it had made 20 years ago when I first stepped into that office. Back then, it was just a dusty corner with flickering bulbs, a folding chair, and a whiteboard that still had someone else's doodles on it. Now it was a glass-walled corner view with ergonomic everything, and a plaque that said lead systems architect for about 12 more seconds. My name is Dennis Fletcher. I am 48 years old. I stood there, hands still on the switch, watching the overhead fluorescence blink off for the last time. Behind me, my office plant drooped like it had heard the news too. The photo of me and the old co-founder still sat on the bookshelf, slightly crooked, from when the cleaning crew knocked it askew last month. The hallway outside buzzed with the dull hum of people pretending not to care. When you have been with a place as long as I have, your name becomes the kind of whisper that managers squint at on organizational charts and interns try to search online. "The exit is behind you," Gavin said, grinning like a man who thought he just won something. "But we will get to him in a minute. It is a strange thing leaving a job you practically raised from infancy." When I joined, the code base was duct taped together by two guys working from an apartment that smelled like Hot Pockets and regret. I did not just build the system, I was the system. From the login protocols to the reporting engine, to the hand-coded interface we eventually replaced with something sleeker, I built the thing like it was a child I never had. 3 chief executive officers came and went. Some decent, some dumber than toast, but none of them ever questioned my place. I was not flashy. I was not loud. I saw mergers, audits, lawsuits, marriages, and even a few affairs conducted through the office chat system. Human resources tried to block a certain anatomy word once and accidentally shut down the whole knowledge base. And then Gavin showed up. Gavin was the kind of guy who says, "Let us circle back," like it is a power move, and wears cologne that smells like burned ambition. Private equity had installed him to modernize us, which really meant slash anything that was not shiny and new. He swaggered in with his laminated buzzwords and presentation decks full of things like synergized monetization and cloud-native revolutions. I asked him once what a specific container cluster was, just for fun. He said he does not get into the weeds, which is executive speak, for he searched it online and still does not understand it. Still, I smiled, nodded, did my job, and kept things running. "Until this morning, Dennis," he said, like we were old friends, "we are restructuring. It is time for fresh blood." "You have had a good run." I said nothing. I just smiled. "Do you have anything you would like to say?" Sarah, one of the human resources twins, asked. Her eyes flicked nervously at my calm face. I thought about saying something witty, something scathing. I thought about quoting Clause 7.3 from the original intellectual property agreement that no one bothered to update. Instead, I stood, gathered my things, walked down the hallway past the engineers, who suddenly found their monitors very interesting, reached my office, and turned off the light. Click. Except it was not the end. It was the beginning. The weirdest part was how polite they tried to make it. As if they used enough throw pillows and chamomile-scented corporate language, it would not be what it was. A hit job wrapped in a silk napkin. I knew the second I opened the door. Gavin sat in his leather chair like a cat who just figured out how to open the refrigerator. Human resources flanked him on both sides. Sarah and Brian, Team Beige. Their laptops were already open, their expressions already pre-baked in concern. "Dennis," he said, like he was not about to professionally murder me. "We appreciate everything you have done. You have been with us a long time." 20 years, I said it flatly, just so he had to feel the weight of it in the room. It landed like wet concrete. He smiled wider, like he mistook acknowledgement for agreement. "Right, 20 incredible years, but we are entering a new phase. It is time for modernization. And unfortunately, that means restructuring some legacy positions to make room for new talent. Fresh blood." I watched his mouth move, but my brain focused on a detail behind him. A framed poster of our software's first interface, version 1.0. Gavin had no idea he was firing the person who was the architecture. "You have had a good run," he finished, as if he was patting me on the head and giving me a coupon to a chain restaurant. Brian leaned forward, probably rehearsing this in his sleep. "We will offer you a generous severance." "Understood," I said, and stood. Just like that. No asking why me, no protest, No asking who they thought could possibly maintain the codebase. No warning that the contract they never updated was about to cost them a 9-digit panic attack. Brian blinked. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Gavin tilted his head like a confused dog. I watched it land on them. Wait, he is not fighting this. They expected tears. Dennis, Gavin said slowly. Is there anything you want to ask? I thought about it for one heartbeat. Then I said nope and turned to go. The hallway outside felt colder than it should have. People glanced at me, then quickly away like eye contact might get them fired too. I passed the operations pit where someone was microwaving fish. Of course they were, and made it to my office. I took the long route on purpose. I wanted them to see. Once inside, I shut the door and stared out the window. Rain, a light October drizzle, tapped the glass. I did not pack much. Just my laptop, the red leather binder that lived in the back of my filing cabinet, and the ceramic mug that said "Coffee First Bugs" later in fading black letters. The mug had a hairline crack that caught the sunlight like a fault line, fitting. I glanced at my bookshelf and left everything else. Let the interns inherit my copy of clean code books. Let Gavin keep the framed photo on the wall. I zipped up my tote bag, walked out without a sound, and took the stairs down 5 flights. I did not want to share an elevator with someone who would pretend they did not know what just happened. Outside, the wind was sharp. I did not flinch. I walked to my car, turned off my phone mid-buzz, and sat in silence. Let the rain fall. He did not know yet, but he would. There is a difference between silence and surrender. The phone was the first to go. Powered off mid-vibration, mid-email, mid-whatever. The screen dimmed to black like it had finally been relieved of duty, and I slid it into the glove compartment like a sleeping pill. I never intended to wake it up. The company laptop joined it unopened. The rain picked up, tapping on the windshield like the universe was slow clapping. I did not drive home. It was a little cafe tucked behind a public library. The kind of place with chipped saucers, mismatched chairs, and internet that might work if you begged it nicely. The barista blinked. I have not seen you in what, a decade? 15 years? I smiled. Do you still make those molasses cookies? She grinned and nodded toward the glass case. Only for the loyalists. I ordered one and sat down in the far corner, where the seat still wobbled if you shifted your weight wrong. I did not mind. From my tote bag, I pulled out the red leather binder. The edges were worn, corners bent like a book that had been reread through several past lives. No one around me knew that inside that binder lived the potential end of Gavin's career and maybe the company's illusion of control. I opened it to the first tab, Initial Agreement, Dennis Fletcher. Dated 20 years ago, signed with a pen that had since exploded in my desk drawer. Back in year 1, we were 4 people sharing a borrowed conference room and 1 busted coffee machine. I wrote the code, every line. So instead, we agreed on paper, notarized, scanned twice, and emailed to 2 different addresses for redundancy, that the intellectual property would remain mine. Specifically, the document stated that ownership of source code, libraries, and compiled executables shall remain with the author until full equity conversion is completed and documented in writing. If such transfer is not executed, any presumed assignment of intellectual property rights is void ab initio. They called it a placeholder, said it would be updated when we became a legitimate corporation. Oh, sure, we incorporated, grew, built client portfolios and sales decks, and hired interns to write chatbots that told us when it was someone's birthday. But the clause, the handoff, it never got cleaned up. There was too much momentum, too many shiny distractions. I flipped to the second tab, an email chain from 2008 where I reminded the co-founders their reply was simple. We will involve legal when we have bandwidth. Bandwidth. That was their corporate word for we will forget this on purpose. I kept everything, every reminder, every avoidance, every shrugging dismissal. The binder was not just proof, it was time travel. And there it all was. A living record that said, you may have built the skyscraper, but I still own the foundation. I sipped my coffee. The molasses cookie melted perfectly against the heat. My fingers hovered over my personal laptop keyboard subject, intellectual property assignment and licensing rights. Message. Hi Neil, ready to talk? Just had an interesting morning. I attached scans of the binder tabs and clicked send. Then I closed the laptop and just breathed. There were no notifications, no chat emergencies. No performance reviews built by people who could not spell basic programming languages. Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle. They thought they deleted me with a 6-minute meeting and a smug smirk. But they did not know I kept receipts. At 10:17 in the morning, the East Coast Healthcare portal timed out mid-login for 6 hospital administrators trying to pull quarterly compliance reports. 5 minutes later, an insurance claims processor flagged 4 internal errors. By 10:26, a government contractor from the Capitol left a voicemail for our client success manager. Why can we not access the custom dashboard you promised? The thing about enterprise software is it does not implode with a bang. It cracks quietly, and then all at once. At 10:34, someone in information technology, probably Kevin judging by the panicked string of diagnostics that hit the server logs, realized the auto-authentication flow was not just stalling. It was locked. The back end was refusing credentials like a bouncer with a grudge. Error. It was not a firewall issue. It was not a network routing problem. The core modules, the ones I wrote in the first year and wrapped in a custom layer of encryption and handshake verification, were sealed off like a panic room. Legacy keys expired weeks ago, and the update authentication handshake, well, let us just say I was the only one who ever rotated it on a schedule. No one else ever tracked. Human resources might have deactivated my email, but they did not touch the substructure because they did not even know where it lived. At 11:02 in the morning, Gavin was in the server room. It was not his natural habitat. Just reboot it, he barked. You want us to reboot the production environment? Kevin asked, blinking like a hostage. Yes. Clear the cache. We do not use containerization for the core modules, someone mumbled. Dept, whatever is blocking access. He was shouting at air by then. Kevin turned pale as he stared at the script outputs rolling across the monitor. Timestamps blinking. By 11:23, sales got the first angry call from a Fortune 100 client. Someone in procurement was unable to verify invoice packages. Then came finance. Then the legal department. Then the development operations team started tracing the logs upstream, the heartbeat server that all those requests ultimately passed through. The codebase that determined where and how data flowed was gone from the active environment. Not deleted, just unreachable. It had been wrapped in an invisibility cloak made of red tape and bad assumptions. By noon, a third of our client stack could not access their dashboards. Who changed the core routing? Why is the encryption key different? Who approved this update? Did Dennis leave a credentials document before he left? No, just a binder. That last message came from Chloe in development operations. She meant the red leather binder. Gavin stormed back to his office, nostrils flaring like a bull trying to smell competence. His assistant tried to hand him a tablet. He slapped it away, sir, Chloe said cautiously, poking her head in the doorway. That would have been Dennis. Silence. Gavin sat down slowly. The infrastructure map they were looking at had holes in it. Entire branches of the codebase were grayed out like ghost limbs. From my cafe seat, I refreshed the internal status dashboard, which I still had passive read access to thanks to an oversight buried deep in the legacy build process. Requests 2,174. Failures 847. Escalations 39. A pop-up chirped on my personal laptop. Neil, my lawyer, confirming our call at 2 in the afternoon with a short message. Got your documents. I took another bite of the cookie. It was still warm, back at headquarters. Gavin ordered another reset, and the system laughed in his face. At 12:46 in the afternoon, the general counsel tried to push an emergency patch to bypass the failing authentication modules. It was one of those blunt force legal panic moves where you throw a stack of paper at a wall and hope the system blinks first. It did not blink. Instead, it threw up a legal stop. Unauthorized access attempt logged. The line that caused the full body shiver was this: Crimson Node Systems Limited Liability Company, Fletcher. Not Gavin. You see, back when we were broke and running on fumes, I incorporated a separate development shell, Crimson Node Systems, to house the intellectual property. It was standard practice for independent contractors to shield themselves. They even thanked me for keeping it clean and professional. That is how naive they were. No one ever circled back to close the loop because why would they? I was loyal. I was one of the good ones. the kind of person you could underpay and over-rely on. So when the general counsel tried to patch the failing code, the system called out the one name no one had spoken aloud in 6 hours. Mine. That is when the nuclear call chain lit up. First, legal called information technology. Information technology called development operations. Sir, we have a problem. Gavin, red-faced and foaming ego, marched into the war room they had converted from an old design studio. The founder's portrait stared down at them from the wall, back when he had more hair and fewer lawsuits. What do you mean? Dennis owns the code? Chloe slid her laptop across the table. Not the code. Gavin blinked like someone trying to read a sobriety test backwards. The general counsel, pale and sweating through his collar, cleared his throat. There is also the matter of a breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing. Not to mention California Civil Code Section 1624 regarding the statute of frauds. Clause what? From the original agreement. Licensing rights remain with the author until transferred or renegotiated in writing. It has never been renegotiated. You are telling me he owns our software. I am telling you, the lawyer said, we never stopped him from owning it. Silence fell like a dropped casket. Then someone whispered what everyone else was thinking. And suddenly the founder, Oliver, was back. Not in person yet, but in spirit via phone call from a vineyard in South America. What the actual hell do you mean he owns the platform? Oliver barked across a speakerphone so loud it cracked the air. Gavin tried to spin it. It is a temporary permissions error. Well, sir, the documentation. Do not tell me about the documentation. Tell me who signed the update clause. Nobody had. Because nobody ever did. Oliver lost it. You let him walk out with $1 billion skeleton key, and you did not think to check if the door locked behind him. In the background, you could hear someone drop a glass. The sound of expensive wine hitting concrete. Legal started scrambling. They drafted retroactive assignments. They emailed template letters. Every one had the same thought. Maybe he left us a back door. But I was not bluffing. They never understood the nature of what they had fired. They thought they were cutting fat. But I was not ornamental. I was infrastructural. By 2:11 in the afternoon, a second government client called to say their contract was frozen pending access clarification. That triggered an internal audit notice. By 2:24, an investor group started dialing Oliver directly. At 2:31, Gavin's assistant brought him a note. 4 words. He looked up at the general counsel. Do we know where he is? I think, the lawyer said. He is lawyering up. They did not know I was already in Neil's office, and we were on our second espresso. My phone, dead for hours, finally groaned to life at 3:02 in the afternoon. I turned it on for exactly one reason. A 3-year exclusive agreement renewable. As soon as the screen lit up, the notifications exploded. Voicemails, 47 texts, 138 missed calls. It buzzed again, blocked number, then again, then again. Neil leaned over from across the booth, sipping his espresso. They are melting down, are they not? Like a tower of wooden blocks made of energy drinks and hubris, he grinned. You were smart to keep everything. I designed the forgetting, I said, flipping to another scan in the red binder. I knew the day they got funding, they would stop treating paper like gospel. I was just patient. On cue, my professional networking application pinged. It was a message from someone I had not heard from in 3 years. The message was short. They are freaking out. I stared at it for a second, then tapped out a single reply. A slightly smiling face. Then I logged off permanently. Let them wonder what the emoji meant. Back at headquarters, the bloodletting was accelerating. Chloe from development operations had dug through the legacy chat exports and old server backups like a paleontologist in a tar pit, and there it was. Dated 18 months ago, the body of the email was clear and painfully simple. Gavin, attaching my recommendations from the last infrastructure audit, and right below it, Gavin's reply. Thanks, Dennis. Not a priority right now. They never circled back. Now, legal was printing this email on letterhead and slapping sticky notes on it like it was a live grenade. The founder had already forwarded it to the board with a one-line message. Someone in human resources tried to redact the email chain for the internal investigation, but it was too late. A screenshot was already in the group. Chat labeled failure of the century. The mood in the office had shifted from panic to blame. The operations team accused the legal department. Legal blamed Gavin. At 3:36 in the afternoon, the system's dashboard auto-refreshed for the third time that hour. Failure rates held steady at 34%. Someone in quality assurance joked, "We have got the world's most expensive screensaver now." No one laughed. Meanwhile, I sat across from Neil, watching traffic roll past the office window. Watching emails fly in that would never be opened. He had fired me with a grin, but he had not checked the wiring on the explosive device he was sitting on. And now, every delay, every glitch, every white screen of death, it all screamed the same quiet truth. "You fired the wrong person." Neil pushed his glasses up. "They are going to offer a deal," I nodded. "I know. What terms are you going to request?" I smiled. "Everything I have already earned." The emergency board meeting was called for 5 o'clock sharp. But by 4:36, most of the key players were already seated. They were waiting for one person. The founder, Oliver. He landed in a private jet 30 minutes prior, still wearing sunglasses and what looked like golf shoes. He did not stop to say hello. When he entered the boardroom, no one dared speak. Gavin stood, trying to offer a handshake. Oliver walked past him like a ghost. No words. Just a leather folder slapped onto the table. The general counsel cleared his throat. Shaking slightly, he held up a stapled document that looked like it had been rescued from the bowels of some long-abandoned digital drive. The silence afterward was not just awkward. It was radioactive. One of the board members leaned forward. "That is from the original agreement," the general counsel nodded. "Dated July 12, 2006, reconfirmed via unsigned assignment drafts in 2008, 2012, and again in 2019, none executed. The licensing entity, Crimson Node Systems Limited Liability Company, is still active." "So wait," the same board member said, blinking. "Are we saying we do not own the platform?" "Not the platform," the general counsel replied. "We own parts, the user interface, the client integrations, but the core backend, the source tree, the database schema, the licensing kernel, all of it is licensed to us under implied use." A second board member chimed in, voice climbing. "But we have been selling this software for a decade." The general counsel did not blink. "Technically, we have been slicing a product we do not own." Gavin barked. "He cannot do that." Oliver snapped. "You are damn right he can do that." "I assumed it was updated," Gavin said, sweating through his collar. "He never said anything. He emailed you." The general counsel interrupted, now furious. "We found 3 separate documented attempts by Dennis over the past 5 years, offering to walk you through the legal cleanup." He flipped one of the printouts. Gavin's email glared back at him in large font. "Not a priority right now. Let us stay focused on modernization." The room went cold. Oliver's hands balled into fists. "We are one client escalation away from a class action breach of fiduciary duty. One more government agency notices the disruption, and we are facing a federal audit. Do you understand what happens to our valuation if the technology stack is legally ambiguous?" Gavin was pale now. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Another board member spoke, slow and stunned. "We have built our entire roadmap, our fourth-quarter sales targets, on software we do not technically own." "Yes," the general counsel said. "And unless we can strike a new licensing agreement with Dennis within the next 48 hours, we may need to issue a notice to shareholders regarding potential operational risk." Someone cursed under their breath. Someone else knocked over a glass. Oliver looked at Gavin like a man seeing him for the first time. "You fired the architect of our core product without cause, without legal review, without confirming that we actually owned what he built." "He was legacy," Gavin blurted. "He was not innovating. We needed new leadership." "No," Oliver said, his voice dropping to a low growl. "You needed a babysitter, and you just threw away the only adult in the room." Outside the conference room, employees walked by oblivious. Inside, the board sat stunned, realizing they had just detonated their own foundation with a single smug handshake and a termination notice written in cheerful corporate font. They did not just lose an employee. They lost ownership, and I had not even raised my voice. Neil's office sat on the 23rd floor of a downtown building that smelled like polished stone, generational wealth, and old money mistakes. The kind of place where the elevator buttons felt expensive, and the receptionists offered you water like they knew you would be buying something big. I walked in just after 9 in the morning. No rush. I looked like what I was. A man who no longer had anything to prove. Neil greeted me with that same quiet smile he had had since the beginning. Cool, precise, the kind of lawyer who always read the last paragraph first. His assistant ushered me into the glass conference room, where a thick bound packet already sat on the table, tabbed and highlighted in surgical neon yellow. "We are ready," Neil said. "They have called 4 times since 7 in the morning. Same question every time. What does he want?" I pulled out the red leather binder and set it next to the proposal. A little poetic symmetry. "What do I want?" I echoed, sliding into the chair. "Simple. I want terms." The packet was clean. A 3-year exclusive license. $90 million up front, non-negotiable. 10% royalties on every new client rollout using the Crimson Node stack. A full advisory role baked in with board-level veto power on architectural changes. No reassignments, no dilution, no replacement. "I am not coming back to code," I told Neil. "I am coming back to protect what I built. They can decorate it all they want, but no one rewires the plumbing without me in the room." He nodded. "They will push back on the royalties and the board roll. They are welcome to rebuild the stack from scratch then," I said, flipping the page. Clause 14 was my favorite. It was not about money. It was about narrative. The company will issue a formal public retraction of the termination notice, stating that Dennis Fletcher's departure was the result of internal miscommunication and not performance-based. "And Gavin?" Neil asked. "That is Clause 15, I said. "Effective immediately upon licensing agreement execution, Gavin will resign or be removed from all operational authority. No more smiling assassin moves," I added. "He is out." Neil did not blink. He tapped his pen against the folder, calculating. "They will scream. Then they will pay." "They will scream while paying," I corrected, and sign the top page. The shareholder call kicked off at 4 in the afternoon sharp. The emergency kind. The one where your inbox lights up with 5 exclamation marks. They ran it over a video conference, but most of the board was already seated together in the main conference room. Gavin sat at the far end of the table. His suit wrinkled, his collar wilted, the smile long gone from his face. Oliver sat dead center, flanked by 2 outside council representatives and 1 visibly nauseous public relations strategist. He held a folder in his hands. The licensing proposal Neil and I finalized barely 24 hours ago. It was thick, every clause printed on double-spaced letterhead, just so no one could pretend they had not read it. He did not ease into it. "This," Oliver said into the microphone, his voice low, "is Dennis Fletcher's licensing proposal." He began to read aloud, slowly, clearly. Every line like a nail driven into the casket Gavin built for himself. 3-year exclusive license. $90 million up front. 10% royalty on new installs. Architectural oversight retained by Mr. Fletcher. Public retraction of his dismissal. He flipped a page, and Clause 15. Immediate removal of Gavin from operational authority. There was a rustle in the room. No one dared speak. Oliver looked up. His face had gone slightly pale, his voice a few decibels thinner now. He turned to the board and said it, not softly, not rhetorically, but with the stunned rage of a man who just learned his house had been built on borrowed land. "Why is our $500 million software in his name?" No one answered. Gavin opened his mouth like he was about to give a seminar on miscommunication and growth strategy. Oliver held up a hand. "Do not speak." Gavin flinched. "Do not tell us this was a clerical oversight. Do not tell us it was not your priority. Do not tell us he never warned you. Because we have the emails, Gavin. We have the messages. We have the audit notes you marked as low priority." He turned to the board again. "We have already voted. The terms are accepted. The contract is approved." And Gavin Oliver stood. "You are done." The silence that followed was total. Just the low hum of a video call, full of shareholders realizing they almost lost everything because one man thought legacy code meant disposable. Across town, in a building they never thought I would set foot in again, I stood outside my old office door, same hallway, same plant in the corner. Only someone had overwatered it in my absence, and now it drooped in defeat. I reached for the knob. My badge had been reactivated 20 minutes ago. I stepped inside. Everything was as I had left it. The chair, the shelves, even the stupid mousepad with the built-in wrist cushion I hated but never replaced. The only difference was the silence. Irreverent, almost sacred. quiet. Like the room itself knew who had come home. I walked to the far wall and rested my hand on the switch. Same light. Same click. The fluorescence buzzed to life overhead, humming like an old friend. I did not smile. I did not cry. I just stood there absorbing the truth of it. They tried to erase me, and now every line of code they run, every dollar they earn, every update they deploy, it all begins with my name. I did not need revenge. I just needed them to remember.